what a long week it's been for the East Coast Invaders shipping out west. But we put that to bed because they're here. The defending sprint champ had a late week work, and that's the last time we'll use the word late, referencing anything to do with Bill Spar, as the work went down at 5:30 a.m. And the lads from Ballydoyle were out for the first time this morning, meaning a very busy international report as the pursuit is back on.
Skywalker is still there, carrying a huge upset looming here, and they're coming down to the finish, and it is pleasantly perfect.
Raven Pass and Frankie Dettori have won the class.
Zenyatta, what a performance, one we'll never forget.
Brought to you by Fasig-Tipton, home of North America's first thoroughbred auction company. No one has a longer pedigree. And TwinSpires.com, featuring TwinSpires TV, TwinSpires Pro, and smartphone wagering with live video.
We're going to take a live look out on the main track. That's Game On Dude as he's out for a gallop a couple of days out from the Breeders' Cup Classic. Scott Hazelton alongside Jeff Siegel and Richard Migliore. Mig, what are you seeing here?
Well, it's just his typical gallop. He always looks more impressive going fast, but nothing's changed all week, and he is still very, very much the one to beat.
You know, he's on form, to me, a standout, and I know Bob's got him right on. He's 5 years of age. He's matured. He's developed. He works well. He gallops okay, but in the races, he runs great. That's all that matters.
Bob has been bragging on him, as he should, calling him a copper penny. Just sit back and look at him is what he has said in a lot of the quotes this week leading up to the Breeders' Cup. As we welcome you back to Santa Anita Park. Again, Scott Hazelton, Richard Migliore, Jeff Siegel, and Richie at the top there in the tees mentioned that the New York horses are here. But looking at the human connections and some of these jockeys, Johnny Velasquez, for example, trying to get out here, how hard is it for them to worry about that and then worry about riding on the biggest stage in North American racing?
They will get here, and personally, I don't think it's going to play a big factor with the jockeys. I think the connections of the horses are breathing a collective sigh of relief. But you know, jocks do this all the time. You know, you'll catch a red eye someplace and sleep in the jocks room and ride. They'll handle it just fine.
Siegel, what about the horses? Should we remember what they've gone through over the last few days in trying to get out here as well and handicapping?
I don't think it makes any difference to me. And the horses, they don't get bothered by anything. As a matter of fact, I like them getting here as late as you can. You either get here early or you get here late. It's the horses that get here 2-3 weeks ahead of time. That's the ones I worry about. Horses that get in right on top of the race, that's perfect.
Let's take a look back at the racetrack. TRAILBLAZER out. This is the Japanese hopeful for the Breeders' Cup Turf. Siegel, he was a closing runner-up, I believe, in the Breeders' Cup, or the Arroyo Seco.
Yes, he was.
So obviously, and now he'll get to stretch out 1.5 miles, which he needs. He needs more distance.
Well, he really ran well at a mile. I mean, that race alone that we saw a few weeks back was good enough to make him a contender in the mile. But his form overseas in Japan, certainly he's capable of going 1.5 miles. I think he finished 4th in the Japan Cup at one stage of his career. So, yeah, he's good. He'll run. I don't like that 12-hole, but other than that, I think he's going to be fine.
He's got that big swinging stride. Looks like he's enjoying himself this morning, taking in the Santa Anita sights.
Just showing up from Hollywood Park. That's where he's stabled. He's been over here to Santa Anita, obviously, to run in that prep race behind, obviously, a few weeks back. Today's workouts, once again, brought to you by Escandrea, the tailor-made stallion. Just a couple of them to show you. One from yesterday, Rising Legend, went 4 furlongs and 50 flat. And then AMAZOMBIE will be showing you that workout from 5:30 a.m. Pacific time. Later on in the show, the time 37 3/5 seconds. But time now to go down to Caton Bradar for this Pursuit News update. And Caton, let's talk arrivals and a single defection that we learned about yesterday.
Yeah, Scott, just one defection so far since entries were drawn. The connections of Nareed announcing that she had kicked the stall, injured herself, and will not compete in the Breeders' Cup. We expect to hear that officially and have her scratched by the stewards sometime later today. As far as the horses are concerned, as you mentioned, it's a day we can say all Breeders' Cup horses here and accounted for at Santa Anita, and that, of course, tops our Gainesway Farm news of the day. 3 vans from the airport arriving between 1 and 2 o'clock yesterday with 7 horses from Kentucky, including Wise, Dan, and Fort Larned. Of course, Todd Pletcher's group from New York, Mucho Macho Man, and Pletcher says all's well.
I thought they traveled really well. All 4 of the ones that came in yesterday had a good night, ate well, and seemed to be bright and alert this morning, so I think the trip went as smoothly as we could have hoped for.
With the storm, all the changes, talk about how, if at all, that impacts things for the Breeders' Cup.
I don't think it should have any impact on the races itself. I mean, we basically got delayed one day. We didn't get to do much as far as training for 2 days, but you know, we luckily got all of our breezes in before the storm hit, and the horses handled it well, and barn was safe, and with the exception of not having any electricity and no light until about 7 o'clock, really everything's kind of attacking it from all angles. You know, we sent Turbo Compressor and Love and Pride out here for a prep race. They stayed. We had a few running Kentucky and come out here afterwards, and a few have their final prep in New York and wait until the last minute. So I think, like always, the most important thing is to bring the best horse.
Also yesterday, Dale Roman's pair for the turf galloped happily down the hill at Santa Anita.
I didn't want an excuse after the race that they didn't like running down the hill and changing from turf to dirt back to turf. And I'm glad we did. It looked like Dullahan hesitated just a little bit getting to the dirt and then hesitated a little bit getting back on a turf course. So just let them look at it. Little Mike was the one I was most concerned about. He just seemed to skip over it. And but with Dullahan, he did kind of check it out.
And workouts this morning, defending Breeders' Cup Sprint winner AMAZOMBIE blew out down the lane with jockey Mike Smith looking on.
It's a lot like last year, actually. He went in 38 and 2 or 3 last year, and he went 38 and 2 this morning. So it's everything like last year so far.
In terms of how he's doing going into the race, how does he compare to last year?
Bill says he's doing great. You know, I don't get on him much, Kate, in the morning, but he's doing really good. You know, his last race, we really thought that, you know, he only ran a couple of times and kind of needed the race. A lot of time in between the two. Should really jump forward off of it, and he seems to have. So all systems go.
Now, a quick note regarding travel, particularly for the jockeys on the East Coast trying to get to the West. We know that John Velasquez, Javier Castellano, as well as Ramon Dominguez had flights scheduled for today, Thursday, and are expected to come in. The good news, JFK, along with Newark, and now as of today, some limited flights expected to come through LaGuardia. So Connections believe they're going to get here safe and sound, so everybody accounted for very soon, Scott.
Track now, Mucho Macho Man at making an appearance after shipping in with Kathy Ritvo, who caught a ride there on the flight from New York. Mucho Macho Man, one of the leading contenders for the Breeders' Cup Classic, boys, and we'll take a look at him here in just a second. And there's no doubting his ability. And the thing about him is Kathy has really gotten to know him, Richie. She knows the sort of time he needs in between races to be at his best.
Giving him plenty of time this year. Every time he'd run, he'd have a big break between. And certainly working up a storm, though. He did things at the Saratoga training track that no horse has done since Seattle Slew, working 5/8 and 57 and change.
He's had a terrific 2012. He's only had 5 starts, so he's a fresh horse. 3 wins, a second and a third. He hasn't been out since early September, but as you pointed out, Richie, he's training like he's fit and ready, and he doesn't strike me as the kind of colt that you need to hone on all that much anyway. And he's got good stalking style for the distance in a race that doesn't have a whole lot of pace in it. I think he'll draft into a really good spot.
Post position number 11 there for Mucho Macho Man. We'll talk more about him later on in the show, but we've reached break time here on Pursuit, and when we come back, we'll go back to 5:30 a.m. Pacific time to take a look at the AMAZOMBIE workout and get Richie and Jeff's thoughts, and then Millie Ball back on the International Report.
And how about this? Europe exchanging pleasantries with America this morning. The breaking of bread as Aidan O'Brien and D. Wayne Lucas make peace before war. We'll have a Euro International Report when we come back.